Hey there, guys. Welcome back to our show. This is Sarah Nicole Nadler, your host. Welcome to Fierce Feminine Finance. And today's episode, I have a very special guest to share with you. Meghana is a wife, mom of three, entrepreneur, global expat, and executive life coach. She supports busy parents and caregivers in creating their own uncharted life path of more freedom. Designing your life uncharted is about redefining what success looks like for you so you can own your time, prioritize your family, and explore your personal pursuits without compromising. She is a second generation South Asian American, originally from the San Francisco Bay Area of California, just like me. In January 2020, she and her husband packed up their three kids, left the United States, and relocated to Lisbon, Portugal, in pursuit of a lifelong dream, a life of more freedom. The move abroad was made possible by deeply believing and having the courage to follow through on the necessary action steps to make her dreams a reality. She focused on the higher vision she held for her life, her family, and her future. Please help me welcome her. Thank you so much for coming on the show today.
Thank you. Thank you, Sarah. Thanks for this opportunity.
Yeah. So I would love to hear a little bit more about, it's not every day a normal American woman decides to up and move out of the country. So would you mind sharing with us a little bit? What did your life look like when you were living in San Francisco, and kind of what prompted you to make that change?
Yeah, I mean, I have to say it was within me for like decades. I feel like it was lifelong. Like it was in my heart to make a move abroad since as long as I could remember, going on study abroads and trips abroad in my younger age. And it had always lived in me, but I had a hard time really giving it life, I would say, because it always felt like the priorities of life in the United States, of living in the Bay Area, were always around job and career and gaining financial success. And I think that was also pulling me in a different direction, and it took me away from that bigger dream for most of my 20s and 30s. So
Yeah, I
it
love
was
how you
growing.
touch on.
Go ahead.
Sorry, I was going to say, I hate to interrupt, but I love how you touch on the fear, because I think a lot of us would love to be expats. A lot of us would probably love to go live somewhere else, but that fear holds us back. And since this is your area of expertise, I'd love if you would share with us, how did you overcome that? I mean, you also weren't a single woman at the time, right? You had a family, you had a career. How did you overcome that?
Right. I think there aren't a lot of people that do this move that look like me or that have my life circumstances, responsibilities, right? Raising three kids, young kids. So I really didn't have a lot of models out there. I didn't know anybody that was trying to do this kind of alternative lifestyle, living abroad with kids. So I really had to believe deeply in what I wanted for myself, and to such a degree that almost I ignored like anything else, any other option for my life. At a certain point, it had just become so evident in me that I had to pursue. I had to at least give it a chance. It was more painful to stay kind of where I was and doing the things that I feel like were expected of me. That felt more mundane and routine and painful and even scary, that I would stay that was it. And I used that to propel me to kind of really um, overcome my thoughts around any kind of fear of like, well, what if, and what if it doesn't work out, and to just go with it, go with what felt really right for us, for me, my husband. And so it had been growing within me for years. So I would say I just blocked every other thought. Finally, I said, I'm going to give this a chance, and I know I can do it. And I'm not going to let all of the ideas of my life circumstance, my responsibility as a mother, as a wife, limit me anymore. Because I really used those identities to hold me back from pursuing this for so long.
Wow. Yeah, it's interesting. I interview a lot of really amazing people on this show, and one commonality is almost every person says that the reason they got where they are is because of there's no turning back type of attitude. And I'm curious, like, I don't know that necessarily everyone has that inside them. Do you believe that anyone can overcome their fear and do that? Or do you feel like there's something honestly unique or different or about your story that led you to have that kind of persistence and that kind of drive to do what you're doing?
Great question, Sarah. Yeah, I do think everyone is capable of this. I don't feel like I'm exceptional. Like I don't have some kind of superpower that anybody else does. Like everybody has this ability. But I would say the difference, not just that I took the belief and then put it into action. I think there was a real deep down commitment to taking action. And there was this little bit of like a little tiny step, which is a major one, which is I'm willing to just fail. I'm willing to just try this out and not build it up like, oh, it's either or. Like if I don't get everything, I'm not going to do this. Or if it doesn't work out exactly how I want, then it's a failure, right? I think it was that. It was my willingness to kind of test it out and give it a chance, because I no none of us knows, right, if you when you try something new how it's going to turn out. But I just was in such conviction that I'm at least going to just give it a try. And what failure even was at that time to me was like failure was where I was. Failure to me was not trying. Failure to me was staying in a the lifestyle, in a system, in a way that wasn't serving me and not making a change.
Wow, I love that. That is so cool. So, obviously, this is a show about finance, and I'm sure a lot of my listeners are going to be very curious as to how you financially afford to live abroad and how did you make that transition? So, would you mind explaining to us what did your career look like before you left and what sort of income sources do you have now?
Yeah, great question. A lot of people have been asking me about. Um, no surprise. This is, like I said, it was kind of building within me for a long time. So, my traditional background is in city planning, and I had studied that and went to graduate school. I had a real passion for affordable housing, real estate early on in my early career, and I worked for local government. So I loved that kind of community work and serving people, but it wasn't the obvious right environment for me, just as a young, ambitious woman of color in that time, in that climate. It just didn't serve me to stay kind of in that environment, which really stifled a lot of my growth in my point of view, in my personal experience. And so that was always like frustrating to me, right? To not be able to live up to my own potential. So I was always exploring kind of what else is out there for me, not just in an entrepreneurial sense, but also like in geography. I was always looking for jobs to live abroad and like do my work abroad. I had invested many years trying to find the right job to make this move happen, and that right job never came along for numerous reasons, all because of me, mostly because of me. And me not finding that right job meant that should I even pursue a life abroad? And in that process, I almost put it to rest. Like I almost didn't pursue like a life abroad. But because I was so at some point so determined to even give it a try, I had to look at how we could do it, right? How we could do it in terms of the skills, the knowledge, the experience that I already had. And it forced me to consider my own path. It forced me to really consider taking my financial means in my own hands. And that was the way how we've made this move to Portugal happen. So it was really a mindset shift where I said I could work for somebody and never get a chance to move abroad because they were never going to let me live where I wanted, like in Europe or in Portugal. Or I could try to create my own means of making the move possible. And in that, as I decided to like look at my skill set, my husband also, we didn't really see it even until the last year before we moved here, how we were going to do it. We just committed to figuring it out. And the last year before we moved, it was glaring at that point. It was like our conviction and belief led us to see what was possible for us. And he had been, for many years, he's been raised in a family of real estate, like within real estate investment. So he had been growing his real estate portfolio, his property management skills over like 20 years. But it really never occurred to us that we could put this all together and you have enough income to support our lifestyle abroad until the year before we moved. And we trialed it. During travels for about 2 months. I traveled to Florida. I traveled to Portugal on a previous trip. We were able to kind of run it and test it out to see if it could be possible, but I really didn't even see it till about a year before. The how was like, it was always what limited me from even taking the step of thinking about moving abroad. So I was almost in a mindset that I'm not going to let that be the limitation. And once I said it's not my limitation, it was almost like I saw the opportunity of putting this all together. His 15 years of real estate experience, my background in city planning as well. And we said, well, whatever that income that we can generate passively is going to free us in terms of our time. And so when we move abroad, we'll use that time to develop other fulfilling businesses that we really, really want to grow. So I always saw it as a step towards our ability to create more businesses, more opportunities in our future.
I love that. So you basically built a portfolio of real estate investments. Is that correct? As your first, and how many did you have in the beginning?
I mean, we don't have a lot. We still don't. We have our primary residence, and my husband has a fourplex in his name, and he'd been working with his mother, and they had acquired other properties. But for the moment, those are the two main, like a multiplex apartment building and our property our primary residence in California. So we've been able to, we've been able to put that out to the test, run it, and it's been going for 4 years now, like that we live fully in Portugal now. And, we still have to work on it. And there's a lot more to running a business, like even if it's passive, there's still a lot of active work required.
Sure. But it's not trading time for money in the way that you used to. I think a lot of people don't understand that. And I, being an expert in the area of passive income, I consistently have people come ask me as thinking that they're getting themselves into a get rich quick scheme that will require no touch points whatsoever. And they're chasing this like pot of gold at the end of the rainbow. I'd love if you would touch a little bit on that. Like, what does a typical day look like for you now?
I know, right? This is like, when I talk about it, I get so excited because this is what I wanted for years. I live for it, and I'm just excited that I get to have this opportunity. So what my day typically looks like, I do, I have some morning rituals, wake up early, do meditation, get my kids ready for school. And I do have a workout routine in the mornings, like with a personal trainer. And then I have Portuguese lessons. And after lunch, maybe about 12 to 5 is when I dedicate to my current business in my coaching practice, my executive coach, life coach practice. About 5 hours a day is what I would say, like focused work. And then definitely there's work. There's other things like managing some of the finances for my properties that is maybe an hour, 2 hours a week now.
So the majority of your income now comes still from the real estate, but you're also building this coaching brand. And I'm curious, was that purely just to add another passive income stream, or did this come out of a passion of yours?
Thank you. Yeah, definitely not a passive income scheme. This requires a lot of work, a lot of, expertise, a lot of putting yourself out there, connecting with people. This is from me wanting to serve people like so deeply to creating the life that really serves them, right? A life that speaks to their values, a life of meaning. The life that I've created, essentially, I want to help people create their own version of it. right? With the time that I get to spend on the things that really matter to me. That's like
100%.
invaluable. Yeah.
100%.
I do think that we can all live more like that.
Yeah. I think it's important. I mean, I live on a 16-acre farm, and oftentimes people tell me, like, oh, I could never afford to do that. 5 years ago, I was homeless living in a truck with $500 to my name. And then people tell me, oh, a farm is so much work. I never left a finger on my farm. you know, I like living on the farm. I don't want
Right?
to be a farmer, So I think
Love
it's
that.
true. I love your passion behind your coaching, because I find a lot of us who are coaches believe that, but it's rare to see someone like yourself who has achieved financial freedom and then went back to trading time for money purely out of the goodness of their heart to serve in a way that you feel called to serve. I think that's so powerful and so important. And I'm curious, how do you feel your kids have been affected by seeing this? Like, when I think of growing up as an American, there's so much propaganda about how America is like the best country in the whole universe,
Oh my
and I'm just
God.
really curious how this move, like, I'm sure it's broadened their horizons, but what has that been like for your kids?
Oh, that's so great too to ask. Yeah, you had it right. You know, you said it exactly. Part of what frustrated me about living in the United States is that they do think that a lot of Americans around me, various backgrounds, do believe that the United States is kind of the center of the universe. And I think a lot of us might be from different parts of the world and come to settle in the US, but still the driving force behind the move is like to acquire the American dream, right? We're all chasing that freedom, that lifestyle of, lots of opulence, big homes. So I think a lot of people come to the US and they have this like idea that this is it, this is the best place to live, especially immigrant mentality, which my parents are from India. So it was like, this is the way you're supposed to live. You're supposed to like work all your life, acquire these things, and and this is the only way. And I really felt really narrow in that mindset because a lot of people never explore. And not only did they not travel, it's also that they don't try other things. I think they don't have enough like confidence in creating something for themselves. But I know I'm going off on a tangent, but that would always frustrate me. Like I never felt like I had a diversity of ideas around me. Like I had people of different diverse backgrounds around me, but everyone was kind of chasing that big American dream. And I was always looking for that alternative person to show me, like to help me understand me, I guess. But I found it in me eventually. But to talk about my kids, um, it is tough because my oldest son, and he came at age 6, so he would be what I'd say the most American. My younger two daughters came at age 4, and my youngest wasn't even 2 years old. So they are the most. The two girls, they speak in a way that's like they think of themselves Portuguese now. They don't even know. They know that we are from the United States because everyone asks, but they don't really have this deep identifying connection to it necessarily, only through me and my husband now. And so how it's shaped them is I definitely know that they've got to experience so much as a young person. Like my son has traveled to, I don't know, 4 of the continents already. Um, and he just I think in some ways like is just kind of like that's normalized for him, like sure we can go to Morocco, sure we can go to Singapore, these things are just he doesn't quite know how unique and exceptional that is just to be able to say that and do that. And he is also the most American, so I think there is a lot of influence that he follows from the United States movies and music, and he misses that American lifestyle the most. He does think very fondly of that big house and the car and the big truck my husband used to drive when we pick him up from school and get donuts. He has that real typical American image of like, this is what life is supposed to be. This is what success looks like, even. He holds on to that. But I
He's
know
got
that
some nostalgia still for his younger years.
he
And
might
how old
still,
is he now?
he's 10. He's almost
Okay.
11 now. So
Yeah,
almost half of their life is here. At
that's
least for
wild.
him. My daughters, They walk around
Yeah,
like
their whole
we're
life.
Portuguese.
Yeah, wild.
Like, and they speak the language, so for them, it's like they have this real. They can really communicate, and connect with people here, so they don't
Very
feel
cool.
like they're foreigners at all.
That's awesome. And I love what you said because I think one of the most dangerous things that anybody can do is to live in an echo chamber where everyone around you is just parroting back the same viewpoint that you have, right? Doesn't matter if you're in the Middle East or you're in, Texas. If you are living in an echo chamber, it's a dangerous place to be because you don't realize that there are 8 billion people out there who probably think differently, right?
Yeah, good
So
point.
I love that you're giving them that exposure. I'm curious, for the woman who is right where you were just 4 or 5 years ago, and she's been dreaming of this her whole life. She's wanted to be an expat for years, but she's got kids and they're in school and her husband and maybe he's not as supportive, or maybe he's just kind of like that, haha, that's cute, honey. What would you say to that woman if you had an opportunity to sit in front of her?
I do love to speak to this and to support women exactly like who I was. 5 years ago, it was really hard. I was in the depths of like despair, and I lacked any vision for a possible future, alternative future that I wanted. I really was in a hard place, really bound by my daily obligations to my kids, my family, and to my job, and maintaining that kind of lifestyle. So I totally get the pain. I was there, and and it still lives in me, just kind of like the memories of that. And I would say, like, as much as it seems hard to try to believe that there is another possible way, even in your being, right? It's like how we show up and that energy that we can bring. We could be doing the same menial task, but how we think about it changes everything, changes like our ultimate result. Yeah. And so I would say to that person, like, don't stop dreaming, and especially don't stop dreaming because now you have kids. It's almost like you owe it to them to be that person that you've always wanted to be, because they get to witness that in you, and then they get to believe that it's worth it for them.
Oh, I got chills, girl. Okay. Thank you for sharing that. That was beautiful. Do you have
Thank you.
any tips or like methodology? Like how do I get from A to Z? I want to move to Morocco next week. Where do I start? How do
Oh
I
man. I mean, all the limits are here. Let's just start, right? Sarah, you could wrap up your bag, you got your passport at least. You could be there next week.
Yeah.
Essentially you could, right? You could choose that. I know it's not that easy. But what could make it easier is just thinking that you can actually do that, and to remember that we all have that choice each day. um I like to wake up in the first thing in the morning in terms of rituals, and like just meditate on like what I really want for my day, and then what do I want for my future, and just kind of live in a state of dreaminess around that, and think of that when I start designing like the goals of my day, I guess, right? Think about that greater view of what you want for your life. Is this task, today's, mundane task, is this really going to create like that future? I know that's hard to, let's see if there's an easier way to put it, but I guess you have to do something, at least one thing, small step each day, to try to create a life that really does speak to us. And that one step helps us believe that it's more and more possible, because at the end of the week you will have created like a couple hours of actual action, towards it. So I would
I
say like
love
at
that.
least
Baby
one
steps.
tiny steps. Yeah, baby
That's
steps.
beautiful. So, if one of my listeners is listening or watching this and they're thinking to themselves, wow, like she knows her stuff. I would love to work with her. I need help with mindset. I need to get my life in order. I need to get back on purpose in what I'm doing. What's the best way to reach you? How do they reach out and find
Oh,
you?
totally. I would love to. I'd be honored to support parents or big visionaries, business owners, to create more options. And options, I think, create more freedom for us, and especially the option of taking charge of our future. I think that's ultimate freedom that we all really want. So if you would love to stay in touch, I have my website is one way. It's thelifeuncharted.com. And then you can also follow me on IG and send me a message like you heard me on Sarah's show. And I could definitely set up a time for us to talk more about what you want to create in your life of your own personal life of freedom. Be happy to do that.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate you coming on today, and I'm
Thank
sure my
you.
listeners are going to absolutely love this episode. So thank you, and good luck in Portugal
Thank you,
or wherever your
Sarah.
travels might take you next.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you so much for this opportunity. Thanks, Sarah.
Absolutely.